All right, here we go into the next part, which is the consequences of original sin. So in these two parts, we want to be able to summarize the consequences of original sin for Adam and Eve, and we want to be able to explain the consequences of original sin for us. All right, so here we go. First of all, real estate. They're expelled from the garden. Consequent to Adam and Eve, they sin, right? In the story, read the story. They reject God, and they're kicked out of the garden. That's one of the things. What does this symbolize, getting kicked out of the garden? It symbolizes the loss of sanctifying grace, the loss of friendship with God. They're not right there tight with Him, right? They're not in the garden. They're not close with Him. They're not where they should have been, right? As well as the possibility of entering into heaven, right? With sin, we can't be in heaven, right? With God is without sin. With God is with God's will. Rejecting God's will is rejecting God, is rejecting heaven, right? So that's what being kicked out of the garden symbolizes. What in the life of Christ did the Garden of Eden prefigure? Well, if they're getting kicked out of the garden because of sin, think of the life of Christ. Christ is here to redeem us, to destroy sin, and so to right the wrong, to bring us back to heaven, to open the gates of heaven. The gates of the garden, He goes and He prays in the Garden of Gethsemane, the Mount of Olives, right before His passion, death, and resurrection. There He is in the Garden of Gethsemane, where He steps on the head of the serpent in the story in the New Testament, right? He's crushing His head. That's what's going on when He prays, "Your will be done, Lord God, not my will." Remember that? The Garden of Gethsemane, He's in agony, right? The agony in the garden, He's praying. And He says, "Oh, make this cup pass. It's going to be too tough." But then He says, "Lord, not my will, but your will be done." The exact opposite of Adam and Eve, who say, "Lord, not your will, but my will be done." And they are kicked out of the garden. Sin enters the world. Evil reigns. Here, you have Christ, right? Destroying evil, crushing the serpent, and saying, "Not my will, your will be done." Isn't that awesome, man? There is poetry in God's salvation history, right? That's stinking awesome. Okay, moving on. What else do they lose? They lose their original holiness and justice. Duh, right? They're rejecting grace. Preternatural gifts is all about participating with grace, right? So the original holiness and justice. Boom, right? So now, natural, we decay, we fall apart, pain, right? Eve will suffer pain in childbirth. Adam's work's going to be toil now, laborious, right? Work's still there. We're supposed to work, but now it's tough, right? And then what else naturally? With decay, illness, suffering, death, right? All that comes naturally to us, right? All that stuff's there, right? God was preserving us from it, but now into it we go, right? Effects, loss of effects. Okay, here we go. Keep going. Disharmony. There's disharmony. What does that mean? Well, they realize in the garden, remember, they're hiding and they sow fig leaves. They realize they're naked. That's cool. What's wrong with that? I mean, were they what? Just totally dense, right? Didn't even know they were naked? No. What's it symbolizing, right? There's a loss of innocence and purity. Now there's disorder in the passions, appetites. Remember, in the light, you can see things clearly as they are, right? You understand the purpose, right? They see them in their full dignity as creatures of God, right? In the image of God, right? But now all of a sudden, what are they doing, right? They see themselves not as pure and innocent, right? But now all of a sudden there's a disorder, right? All of a sudden it's not ordered towards love, but now Adam and Eve see each other ordered towards lust, right? Desire the pleasure instead of the good. That's what we see. Their minds become clouded. It's hard to discern God's law. Now they're out of the garden. They're away from God. Now they're wandering around on their own. Oh, what's good and what's bad? I was with God, right? It was clear. Now I don't know. Even though they're trying to say for themselves what's good or bad, but really they know. They know that it's not working, right? That's how we are, right? We choose for ourselves so many times what we think is good, but it's not, right? Or we know isn't good and we choose it anyway. Now it's hard to discern God's law, God's will in our lives, right? That's why we're having this class. That's why there's so much sin and corruption and stuff in the world, right? All of a sudden their minds are clouded. It's hard for them to discern God's law. Their body desires are enslaving the will. In other words, it should be, right? The will moves the body, but now it's those passions of the body, pleasures of the body that move the will. That's why you have sins of gluttony, right? Of lust, right? All these types of things, right? What is gluttony? Our body, I just want to eat because it tastes so good, and all of a sudden I'm going beyond what I should be doing, right? And there's selfishness. It's ordered towards me, not towards the other. We're created to be ordered towards God. Now we're ordered towards self. You see the disorder? You see how our will is messed up, right? That's what's going on. And now they suffer from concupiscence. That is this tendency towards sin. as mind and will lose their control over emotions and passions, right? Ordered not towards good. Best example, remember I mentioned the light and darkness? Again, here's the best example. Do this in class maybe tomorrow for your portfolio assignment, is walk around the room avoiding desks and people, right? Maybe put some desks in the middle of the room. And then put on our solar glasses, right? Real tight, put them on real tight, and walk around the room trying to avoid desks, okay? What do you see, right? It's harder, right? That is without the light of God. That's what that is. That is without the light of God, right? Perfect analogy right there. That's what happens with the original sin, right? God's grace is not there anymore. Naturally, we're still everything we are, right? But now we don't have God filling up our eyes, right? Hard for us to see. Okay. Lastly, creation remains good, especially the human person, but now it's affected by evil. It's wounded by it, right? It's wounded by it. Okay. We're 6 minutes in. Let's keep going. Okay. That's Adam and Eve's consequences. Now the consequences for us, and this is a lot. We may move over to 12 minutes. I'll try to go quick, so make pauses. So Adam's plight. He's not just choosing for himself, right? He's choosing for the whole human race, right? This is the issue. Now, on the human person from here on out is the stain of original sin. And you may ask the question, why do I have to suffer, right? Why must I suffer right there from something he did, right? I didn't personally commit it. Why should I be punished? That seems kind of unfair, right? Well, not really, right? We didn't lose, this is the key, we didn't lose anything we were entitled to by right. What does that mean? God creates us. Naturally, we have body and soul. We still have body and soul naturally, right? Nothing's being taken away from us that's part of our nature that we naturally have, right? What's missing? The gift that God gave to Adam, right? His nature, which fulfills us, right? Our soul is there as like an empty vessel, right? As a bowl. A bowl is meant to be filled, right? It's meant to be filled. That's our soul. It's meant to be filled. It's built that way, right? God gave us the gift of his grace to fill it, which is what it's meant to have, right? But Adam said, I don't want it. He pushed it out. The bowl's still there, right? We're still there. We're not losing anything that we're entitled to by right. The gift God gives and bestows on Adam wasn't due to us by nature. It wasn't part of our very selves, God's grace, right? That's supernatural. So, the gifts that Adam had, he could pass on, or he didn't have to. And that's what he said. I'm not going to. Let's take, for example, real quick, a millionaire. Say there's a millionaire example. He's walking along, okay? This millionaire's walking along and he sees your dad, right? This is before you're born. And he says to your dad, hey, do this one task. Why don't you deliver this package to the person down the road, and I'll give you $1 million, right? That's a gift for your dad, right? Your dad can do it or not, right? Your dad says, no thanks, right? Your dad says no, right? 20 years later, you're around. You're your age now, and you hear the story. And you say, what the heck, right? And you get mad. You can get mad at your dad, right? Because you don't have the $1 million. And it's true, you don't. But you didn't deserve the $1 million, right? It's not something that you were supposed to have. You could have had. It was a gift, right? Your dad, all he had to do was a simple thing, right? But two things, right? You don't deserve it, right? So you can't really get angry that you're deprived of something. And secondly, right, you can't get mad at the millionaire, right? It's your dad who rejected it, not the millionaire, okay? So get mad at dad. That's fine, right? But you can't get too mad because you don't deserve it. Okay. You can't say pro me. It's a gift, but it's not natural to us. So we're still created good by God, whole and entire. But now it's just a little tougher to do what we're supposed to do, right? So here we go. The stain of original sin. What is the stain of original sin? All right, a lot of stuff here. So listen, okay? A lot of stuff. Maybe pause it, write this down, and read it, and then listen. It's not an actual stain, the stain of original sin. It's not like somewhere on my soul there's some kind of Coke spilled stain, right? There's nothing on or in the soul. There's something absent. Say that again. It's something absent from the soul. It's a no thing. Sin, crazy enough, is a no thing. Something that ought to be there. What? The supernatural life of God, right? God's very grace ought to be there. That's how we're created. We're created, our soul is to be filled with God's grace, supernatural life, right? So that ought to be there, but it's not. So sin, stain of original sin, is a no thing. It's a lack of stuff, right? We're created with the capacity to love. It's capacity for God, right? But it's not there. That's why we call it, that's what's called sanctifying grace. Sanctifying, the grace that sets it apart, right? The grace is a gift from God, God's life, God's very life. Sanctifying what makes us holy. Sanctifying grace. Sanctifying grace. God's life that makes us holy. God's life that makes us who we're supposed to be, right? That's sanctifying grace, okay? Highlight it, underline it, sanctifying grace, right? That's very important, very important, very important. So we don't have it. Adam rejected it, right? We're supposed to have it, but it's not by our nature, right? So that's what's missing. Sanctifying grace. It's a no, saint of original sin is a no thing, right? There's nothing there, what should be. So it's like darkness. What is darkness? Darkness isn't really a real thing. It's not like something tangible. Darkness is just the absence of light. Isn't that crazy? Think about that. Darkness is the absence of light. When the sun comes, necessarily the darkness disappears, right? There we go, okay? So similarly, we're born with our soul being spiritually dark, without the supernatural life, right? Adam and Eve, they're walking in the light. We're born with it supernaturally dark, okay? With it spiritually dark. That's it, right? By nature, that's normal, right? We need God's life, okay? Baptism is what pours that grace back in, and we'll get to that later. Baptism, all of a sudden, we're receiving that light and that grace again, okay? Effects of original sin. Now, because of that, we're subject to ignorance, right? Adam and Eve have God right there. Now we don't, right? Ignorance. It's dark. It's hard for us to discover truth, which is why we have classes on it, right? Why we're still questioning. Do we even know that God exists, right? Suffering and death, concupiscence. We talked about that, right? In darkness, now all of a sudden sin is more appealing. It's harder for us to see what we're studying, that God's the answer to everything, right? Now, if you're looking in dark, it's like the blind leading the blind, right? We don't even know what we're supposed to have. It's harder for us to accept the fact that we're creatures. All right, everything's dark. The darkness, darkness, darkness. God is the ultimate being, the source of joy. So, Adam's rejecting it. All right, I'll just put these slides up here for you. You can pause it and write them down if you want to, okay? Adam freely rejects God, right? But remember freedom. Freedom isn't doing what I want without consequences. Freedom isn't making the maze, right? And going the wrong way and making it get to the finish line. Freedom is not doing what I want without consequences. Freedom is being able to choose what I want, but there are consequences. There's a right and a wrong path, right? Okay. So using freedom, we're responsible. We accept the consequences. That's big in this class. Responsibility and consequences, right? I don't want excuses. Adam gave excuses. Freedom, you do what you do, no excuses, you accept the consequences. Okay, got it. Last little bit. Here we go. Okay. What is justice? What is justice? What's going on here? Perfect justice is what's going on here. Justice is the administering or punishment of reward of what's due, giving one his due, what he deserves. If God made man a spiritual being, he made him with intellect and will, with free will. Would it be just if God said, nah, I'm not going to let you sin. I'm not going to let you reject me? Because a lot of times you say, why did God let it happen, right? It would be unjust of God to give Adam free will but not let him exercise it, right? That is important to note, right? It would be unjust of God to give Adam free will but not let him exercise it, right? In rejecting God, man asked to be separated from life, right? He asked for death. And so in justice, God allows for it. When we sin in a short way, right, we're rejecting life. We're choosing death, right? So death then, key point, enters the world. When? Not until there's a choice for it. Bad does not enter the world until there's a choice against good, like darkness, right? Evil then is simply the absence of the good. When there's a choice, evil is introduced. There's a lack of the good. All right, here we go. That's it then, right? We got it. Human history has 3 stages. We got the situation, now we're getting the upset. Finally, we have to get the reset, right? Bible has its 3 stages: creation, fall, redemption, right? Creation, fall, Genesis 1, 2, 3. The rest of Scripture is the redemption part, all right? That's what we'll get to right there.